After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Build Connected. We are on episode 66 and you are listening to your two favorite hosts in the world, Adam and
this is Pace.
And that's Pace. And here we are going to talk about some things in our world. And I don't know, I like to ask you about your weekend and all this stuff, but we're going to skip all that nonsense because we heard about your vacation last time and you're getting back into the swing of things. And, you know, on my end, we're getting ready for think about back to school. All right, enough about that jibber jabber.
Listen, I'm 4 days into it. I'm back in work mode. The vacation has been washed off. That's a thing of distant memory, and I'm in let's go mode. Let's go.
Go. Okay. Well, hey, let's talk about asbestos. How about that?
Yeah, love it.
You know, we have come across lots of asbestos in our career. You know, everything from the asbestos that you can see that's wrapped around old ductwork to the asbestos that is incorporated into, say, your drywall mud compound, to asbestos in old tiles, whether it's like a vinyl tile, that sort of thing. And, you know, it's a big concern for a lot of homeowners out there. And when we do any of our projects and we're dealing with older homes, we always have to assume that there is some asbestos in some regard. And the truth is, asbestos becomes very dangerous to you when it becomes friable. And that's when it breaks apart and you get these friable pieces and these little particles that kind of hit the air and you inhale those, and that's when it becomes dangerous. But look, I'm no scientist, Pace, and you and I have talked about this for a while. You know, I think people that still have that old ductwork and they can see the asbestos wrapped around it, and there's little pieces that are frayed, they freak out a little bit because that is a friable piece, and they're concerned for their health. And, you know, I can understand why. But without talking too much about the science, you and I kind of always chat about the fact that that stuff is really harmful if you're breathing it in and out day after day and you're close to it and surrounded by it. What are your thoughts on that? Speak some truth there. Is that true?
I mean, asbestos is actually a great product, right? It's in its regular product form. It's very stable. It's, you know, fire resistant. It's got insulating qualities. It was used as like a miracle product for many, many years. You know, pound for pound, the product that I've removed the most would be asbestos siding. In San Francisco, there was a time period where it was the siding of choice. So, you know, in my early career, I removed a lot of it. And a lot of the regulations that we now have in place as really smart safety measures weren't there. You know, I've removed a ton of siding with just a crowbar and a hammer. And I breathed a lot of that stuff, you know, early on. We kind of migrated into this watering, right? We'd hose down the product as it was getting removed. And then regulations started kicking in, like, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. And, you know, it became a specialty removal product for, you know, a specialty crew to come in and remediate. So, like, the product in its whole form is super stable and there's no worry there. Like, think whatever you want. Think like a tile for the floor or for the ceiling or for like a tile that's on the back of your house as siding. Like, that product is super stable and super safe. So there's no worry there. Like you said, when it becomes friable, when it's in a brittle form and when you rub against it and it becomes aerosolized, right, and then you can breathe it, that's when it's dangerous because it gets wrapped into the fibers in your lungs. So that is something that definitely needs to be handled in a special way. And, you know, I think where you and I, this is such an interesting thing to talk about because fear is at the heart of it, right? And if you are in the remediation industry, whether it's asbestos or it's like mold or it's lead, right? All of these things, there's such fear around them. You can really take advantage in this industry. You can really work certain types of people up and, quite frankly, take advantage. And so, I think we try to fall somewhere in the middle. We try to recognize and clearly define what the safety risks are, like what those conditions are, and then we mitigate those. But we try to inform people, right, about when it becomes dangerous and when it isn't. And like for us, like you mentioned ductwork, like let's just take an example of that. Like if you have like an exposed duct that's tying into your furnace and you've got frayed ends, right? That's something if you're doing work in that area, we'd recommend removing. We'd bring in our asbestos crew and we'd seal off that area. We'd remove it the proper way. Um, Oftentimes we're shrouding that with a special tape or flashing, right? And we're encasing it so that it is no longer friable. Like what we don't recommend is if you've got that same asbestos insulation on your ductwork, chasing it through the walls, right? Where it's in good condition as far as right? And you're not, we wouldn't say, "Oh, let's open up every wall in your house and remove all of that if that wasn't part of the project." So we're trying to hit the areas that are exposed and dangerous, right? And not take advantage, I think is, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's already encapsulated in the wall. It's not dangerous. Your ductwork is, if it's that hard metal ductwork, um, it's all secured on the outside. And if you're someone that is unsure if you have asbestos, you can identify it on your ductwork as, I mean, it kind of like, when you used to have the plaster casts and they would, have these 2-inch strips that they would wet and kind of wrap around your arms. That's really what it looks like. They're like these 2-inch strips that are wrapped around your ducting. Um, but yeah, when Pace, when you and I are working on older homes, we are required to do asbestos testing. So, we have to bring a special testing company out and they test all different parts of the house. They test different areas of drywall because, like I said earlier, it can be found in drywall compound and various other places. And then, depending on what those tests show, if they do show that there is asbestos, say in the drywall, then we have to hire another company to do that remediation work. And they're hired by us, and they're licensed to do that specific remediation work and follow a certain protocol. Um, but yeah, I think, like you said, it's all about the fear factor of that stuff, and um, it's not something
Can
you
I can
should.
I just add one thing there that
Yeah, go.
like all of that testing and that remediation is confined to the area that's the scope of work, right? So like if your drywall compound has asbestos in it, say in the kitchen and we're doing the kitchen, but that, obviously that compound would apply to the rest of the house. If we're not touching other rooms, we're not removing like that material in those rooms. It's only special consideration in the area of work, and that's for the safety of both the homeowners and the workers who are demolishing it.
Yeah, because it becomes a friable product once you cut into it.
Yep.
But otherwise, it's covered by probably 6 layers of paint if it's undisturbed. I don't know. We could keep going on and on about asbestos, but I think that kind of covers some of the fears of it.
I mean, just, on that fear element, this is really for the homeowners. Like, I think it's, if be cautious, if someone is talking to you and it feels like it's fearful information, like, I know this is so difficult. I think it's just measured is the word I want to use here. Just take in the information and try to be critical about what's dangerous and what isn't, and make wise decisions. And I think this is an area where a second opinion is really important because there are a lot of people who prey on the fear that's around these items. So getting a second opinion here is probably pretty smart.
Yeah, agreed. Um, moving on. It's funny. We had a little chat on our last podcast about a project that we were working on and dealing with some implications with the city and planning and compliance. And you and I were in front of that job site the other day, and we were talking like we usually do outside of the trucks, putting together some numbers for another project and talking shop. And one of the neighbors came up to us and approached us and just asked us what we were doing and wanted to know if we could answer some questions for her because she has some things that she's looking to do on her house. And that conversation started to evolve into what is required of the city. Whew, man, did she have some things to say?
Yeah, no doubt. This right here is my happy place. Like listening to the frustration from the neighbor and all the things that we've talked about over many, many episodes, just listening to it from a civilian on the street was magical to me. And this is going to be a lesson in psychology, I think. It's going to be a lesson in societal psychology, right? And the question is, when something is entrenched in our society, and what I mean by that is regulation here and the code and the building department. How do you change that, right? And the answer is it's very, very difficult. I think most people don't care at all, right? They're not doing remodels in general. If they do, it's frustrating for a small amount of time for them, and they're just like, oh man, that stinks. Let me get through it. And then they don't think about it anymore. That's the vast majority of people, right?
Well, look, go back a minute and tell everybody, what her gripes were. I mean, I think this conversation kind of stemmed from her reaction to a conversation she had with somebody that works for the city, right? And I was watching her looking directly at you, and she was looking at the right person because, man, your eyes lit up and you had this big smile on your face. I'm like, wow, she is talking to the guy who is really all about trying to do better, meaning maybe, try to see if change is possible and what can we do? And you love to try and ask these questions. And I know you would love to find that pathway to change. And it was just fun to watch her interaction with you and you with her. Anyway, I'll let you tell the story.
Well, I mean, I think you just did, quite frankly. Like what I want to say is this is the many, many episodes ago, this is the old bike coalition conversation. Like the bike coalition shows up, they make noise, right? They're at town hall meetings en masse, and they are demanding things that they want, bike lanes, sharing of the road. So like that's obviously the answer. And it's got to be part of the solution. But how do you do that when not nobody, most people don't care enough to show up? It's proven that that's the way to make change and things like this, but there's just not the public support. Like the public, if they had the chance to vote, they would vote like to reduce the overreach, reduce the regulation, but they don't want to put in the time. They're busy living their lives. They've got kids, they've got jobs, they've got chores, and they've got like their own time, and they don't want to go to a boring, monotonous 3-hour city hall meeting. They just don't want to invest the time.
And this
So how
stuff
do you make
goes
change without that?
And well, the other thing is, a lot of these things go beyond safety, right? And that's what you and I are all about. Like, there's so many great codes out there that represent the safe part of construction and building, and that all makes sense to us. But man, some of this overreach that you and I talk about is just perplexing. Um, but
Yeah, and it was clear, the neighbor had done remodeling in the past and had very, very, I think, bad interactions with the building officials for very good reason. Listening to the stories, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But listen, I've got well over 20 years of living this day by day. So like I know the truth in the things she's saying. And she's just like, nobody's asking for this, you know? Like, how much money do you want? Like, that's crazy. And I don't know. I just think that people go through this and they feel exactly the same way, but when they're done, they just push it out of their mind and
You know,
they carry on.
but the truth too is like I've talked to so many building officials over my career, and I've been in so many different building and planning departments. And to be honest, I would say the majority of the people that I'm talking to are fantastic. Like they've helped me through the processes of getting from point A to point B, but they are doing their job, right? They are standing by the code. More times than not, they can explain why it is that way. Occasionally they can't, but it's all about liability, right? And that's like you can't change anything within that when you step up to those desks. You are talking to people that are helpful. They want to help you for the most part. That's what they're there to do. And those encounters, like I've said, have usually been great, but they're gonna hold the line because that's what they're hired to do. Um, and that's the frustrating part, right? Because I think more times than not, they would actually agree with you that this is overreach. But at the same time, if they make an exception, then they're liable and it's all about protecting themselves.
You're
And
100% right. I'm gonna add. Of course, there are bad apples. You and I have met bad inspectors. There
sure,
are bad
sure.
inspectors. There are bad officials at the building department counter and the planning counter. I've met those people. They exist, but they are the minority. Most of the people that we work with, I'm going to go ahead and say they're just great people, but they are constrained by the regulation. You're
Yeah.
right. It is 100% about liability. The question is, how do you change that constraint, right? It has to be by going after the regulation, like finding a sensible place that the public agrees upon is where we want to step in and enforce and have oversight. Like that is the question. The question can't be, the answer can't be, this is the way it is. There's nothing to be done. That cannot be the answer. And this is the whole death by a thousand paper cuts. Like every little piece, while it seems sensible, just gets added on top of each other. And eventually there is this mesh of constraint that it's hard to get anything done. And that's where California is.
But that's what you said, right? Death by a thousand paper cuts. There's thousands and thousands of these little codes, right? So how do you decide on what to vote on, right? Like it would be nice to have people vote on something that seems like overreach, but gosh, there has to be more of a broad brushstroke to cover certain topics, and that's the challenge, right? You can't just pick one little thing that we don't like, I can't have decking that's ground level within 5 feet of a property line. Like, how do I pick that one out and make that change? It has to be all encompassing of some sort of umbrella, right? And
Yeah,
I don't know. How do you
I
do
do.
that?
I do. Like, here's my solution. You've asked me this before, and I never answer the question. To me, in California, there needs to be a referendum. The referendum needs to say town by town or jurisdiction by jurisdiction, because some places like these government agencies live on the county level and not on the town level, right? They need to say, now is the time. We are creating a special panel within each jurisdiction, and it needs to be a mixed panel. I want you to think of jury duty. I want you to think of a representative spectrum of the community gets together for a set amount of time, right? And they have a very small goal, maybe in year one. It's let's get some low hanging fruit, right? And the community comes together and they present a recommendation on the things to reduce or change, right? And maybe that goes to a public vote in the next election. That's step one. Let's just take that first step. It's a very sensible way that would get the involvement of the community at large, and not just like the ultra not in my backyard, not the city officials who have grown up within the system. It's representative of the people who live there. That's step one.
Yeah, you and I have talked about Adam Carolla, right? The comedian who went through some major, major upheavals trying to do some work on his property. And I think about his story what was that story? He had a whole bunch of acreage, and he was doing work on his house, and there were some trees that the town wanted him to protect that were like on the other side of his property, a mile away, something crazy like that.
Yeah, I don't think it was a mile, but like this is the thing we go through, right? Like this is an erosion control measure. It's a protection of oak trees. So we have to create these borders around oak trees so they don't get damaged. But the work zone was I'm gonna guess it's hundreds of yards away, right? Something like that. And there's no again, this is the old there's no good reason to have code for a ground level deck. This is the same thing. There's no good reason to protect those trees that are well out of the work zone. But the city officials made them, and that's overreach.
Yeah, I would love to have a conversation with him because he tapped into trying to make some change, and who knows if he got anywhere. But hey, Adam, I'm sure you're listening. Let us know.
Adam's the other Adam is it's funny. I think he has got the attention of more people than probably almost anyone on this issue of overregulation. I mean, he's angry about it. Like he's got firsthand experiences that kind of drive some anger. He's right on topic, though. I mean, there might be some things that are too far, and I'm sure I'm the same exact way. But he's shining a light on something that really needs to be addressed in California in order for us to build and make it livable for most people. I mean, he's on topic.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll be our next guest.
We'll reach out.
Yeah.
Man, that was great. I love talking about those things. I do. But thanks everybody for joining us on another fun episode. I'm Pace.
And I'm Adam.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.